All right, one last look at your traffic and weather for your ride in on this Friday morning. Everything looking relatively calm for the most part out there. You do have a couple accidents to report, one at Assembly Street and Blossom Street, as well as at Divine Street and Woodrow Street. As far as on the interstates, not seeing anything major at this point in time. Weather, don't got to tell you, it is phenomenal outside right now. 69 degrees currently. High today is going to get up to 81. You'll have an 80-degree day tomorrow. Little chance for rain and 80 degrees on Sunday to wrap up the weekend as well. That's your traffic and weather here on The Game. Oh, 9 o'clock on your Friday morning. Welcome in. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head and Jack Veltri along with you here, getting set for a very busy weekend of sports, as you heard right there at the end of the early game. Jack is in the spirit for Team USA Baseball tonight as they get their World Baseball Classic rolling against Brazil, 8 o'clock. Coming up tonight on Fox. Is this the jersey that we were talking about the other day that
Yes.
you're having some problems with?
Well, yes, because I think when we were talking about the hockey jerseys, the Team USA Baseball jerseys were kind of in the same vein of, look, Fanatics and Nike, they make the jerseys for both teams, and it's well known at this point that Fanatics and Nike have done a terrible job with the Team USA hockey jerseys. And honestly, if you go back to the Super Bowl, they did an awful job with the Super Bowl jerseys because what was the problem there? That they didn't expect the Seahawks or the Patriots to be in the Super Bowl.
Which is a terrible excuse.
Beats me how that happened. So, I mean, I'm sure there are people that are frustrated about that. There are a lot of people, including myself, that were frustrated online that after, and again, I get it, it's after the U.S. just won the gold, but shouldn't they have all this stuff stocked? Because they are just wasting an opportunity to make millions and millions of dollars on people who probably wanted a Jack Hughes jersey right after he scores the gold. And you go to Fanatics and it's like this cheap, crappy, gold medal gear. Like it was not the jersey that everyone wanted.
I would rather pay, and this happens a lot of times, especially for like championship type of stuff where you got to wait a little bit because, it gets kind of put on back on order. But yeah, I would rather wait 4 or 5 months for a better quality thing than you ship me something next week that just looks like it was screen printed down at the local t-shirt shop.
Yeah, and that's the thing about Fanatics is that their quality isn't great. Like, this is a heat press jersey that I paid for.
Yeah.
It was $200. But
it looks nice.
It looks nice. It does look nice.
It looks like what they're actually going to wear on the field.
Yes. Now, I did not order this off Fanatics. I had to get this off of Dick's Sporting Goods because, ironically enough, Fanatics just did not have this navy blue jersey in stock. The thing about Fanatics also, I can go on a whole rant about this, is they have jerseys on the site right now. But the problem is, it's mainly the white ones. Unless you don't want Aaron Judge, you could probably get like a Kyle Schwarber or PCA or Bryce Harper Navy jersey. But the problem is, any jersey you order right now on the site, it doesn't ship until like April. That's a month after the World Baseball Classic ends. So you're probably getting your jersey, which is cool to have down the road too. That's mainly why I ordered it. Like, I want to wear this thing to Yankee games and have it because it's like it's never coming back in stock again.
Sure.
Is that like it's not like you're not getting this jersey till way down the road. So that's the problem. It's like you guys have these jerseys in stock, just ship them out. But luckily I found it on Dick's Sporting Goods and was able to get it within like 2 days after ordering it. So shout out to Dick's. But yeah, man, it's a complicated process with these jerseys, but it's worth every penny because it's Aaron Judge. I don't have a Judge jersey, and I mean, this is probably the only time he's playing for Team USA. He's 33, so this is probably it for him.
Did you feel motivated by his speech the other day?
Not really. I didn't think his speech was okay.
He's not a rah-rah guy. That's not. He's a great player, obviously, but he's not the pound your chest locker room speech guy.
He is a great captain. I love having him as a captain on the Yankees, but yeah, when it comes to this, there have been better speeches out there. So
yeah,
but I respect him trying.
Points for trying, but that's not his position. They'll let him go out there, play well, and let that speak for itself. Somebody else can fire up the locker room if they need it ahead of tonight's game. Looking forward to that tonight, but obviously a lot of other things going on, especially with Gamecock sports, including the SEC Women's Tournament that gets rolling for South Carolina coming up at noon, which you can listen to here on the game. We'll dive into that right after our Sandstorm Pick-Me-Up.
Time to get hyped. Here's your 9 a.m. Sandstorm, sponsored by George Sink Injury Lawyers. Just call all nines.
It is time for your 9 a.m. Sandstorm Pick-Me-Up, brought to you by South Carolina's largest injury law firm, George Sink Injury Lawyers. If you've been hurt in the car or at work, call George Sink now at 803 all nines.
I think it's always room to grow. Us putting 60 points on the scoreboard, really, is uncharacteristic of us. So hopefully we can leave that where it is and put some more points on the scoreboard. I do think when we're able to score the way we're playing defense, it gives us enough cushion to where it's not a 1 or 2 possession game at the end of the fourth quarter.
Don Staley the other day talking to the media ahead of their trip up to Greenville to play in the SEC Women's Tournament in the quarterfinals as the number 1 seed starting today. Well, they'll take on Kentucky, who's had to play 2 games already, including taking down Georgia 76-61 yesterday in the second round. Of course, they just played Kentucky the other day to wrap up the regular season, and it wasn't the best performance. South Carolina, again, only scored 60 points. As Don Staley alluded to, had a pretty rough fourth quarter, but escaped with a victory nonetheless. I know yesterday when we talked with Chris Wellbaum during the Garnet Trust Hour, he said, typically Don's teams play rough on that last day of the regular season, but he didn't think it was too much of a level of concern. Same thing with Dawn there in that clip that you heard from her in rematching with Kentucky later on today.
Yeah, the only reason I think that game was a little bit rough is that it's not that South Carolina didn't take it serious, because they obviously did, but it's like they clinched everything they needed to by that point. So you can say like maybe it was a little bit of like a hangover type thing. Like I don't know exactly, but yeah, I think the version of South Carolina we'll see today is probably going to be a lot different. I think they benefit greatly from having just played Kentucky and played them in a close game. And then also the fact that the Wildcats have already played 2 games in 2 days. Like credit to them, like for winning the 2 games that they needed to win over Arkansas and Georgia. But yeah, the deeper you go into this, and maybe it is just the hottest team wins this thing, and maybe if Kentucky wins today, they're probably they could win the SEC potentially, which would be crazy. But I think for South Carolina, they benefit from having the rest, having the getting healthy over these last few days. Like Tania Latson was not on the availability report last night, which is a good sign. So, and I think they'll learn from this type of game. Like we've seen it all year whenever South Carolina has had a rough game or lost a game, even like the Oklahoma game is the most recent example. They've bounced back and they've been perfect down the stretch here. So I think they're going to benefit well from having just faced this team and just seeing that Kentucky's already playing multiple games in multiple days. And maybe that's where Kentucky has South Carolina beat. But I think there probably is some stamina involved in this because South Carolina will be 100% fresh.
I think you do have to worry about Clara Stack, who had a really great game against South Carolina the other day, 24 points and 9 rebounds. She's been on a heater in the 2 games they've played in the tournament so far, where she scored 53 combined points and grabbed 21 rebounds in their games against Arkansas and Georgia. Obviously, she was a matchup problem for Carolina the other day, but I don't doubt South Carolina's ability to be able to handle her the second time around, especially after having just seen her a couple of days ago. Going to be a really good battle between her and Medina Okot when it comes to grabbing those rebounds. So that'll be part of the matchup today. We'll talk with Elijah Campbell later on this morning, as again he just quite literally left the studio and he's on his way to Greenville. So we'll talk to him at 10:30 as he's getting closer. It takes roughly about an hour and a half to get there.
Yeah.
Hopefully not too much traffic, and he'll give us the boots on the ground report from Bon Scores Wellness Arena.
Now I'm seeing this game is up on the monitor here. I'm guessing this is from last night. what the heck happened to Tennessee? We need that study. We need to study the downfall of Tennessee women's basketball this season, because I feel like I'm hearing some random piece of news every other day that involves a player and Kim Caldwell. Like, I thought Tennessee, after the year they had last year, would take another step forward and be good, but man. Like, is Kim Caldwell going to get fired at Tennessee? Because this is not going well.
Let's remember back to when they played South Carolina back at the beginning of February, and South Carolina obliterated them in that game 93-50. It was after that game where Kim Caldwell basically said her team quit. She's like, I got a team full of losers or something to that effect. And weird that they would proceed to only win one more game after that. When your coach calls you out, especially if it's a coach that doesn't have, tons of national championships on her resume, some teams don't react to that very well, and it seems like that's what's happened to Tennessee.
But, I mean, is she wrong? I mean, you get blown up by almost 50 by South Carolina. I don't care who the team is. You get blown up by 50 almost. And, I mean, how else are you supposed to feel? I mean, like, yeah, probably quit down the stretch, but it's probably something you don't say out loud to the media. I don't even know if it would go over well if you just mentioned it in the locker room to the players, like, hey, like, you guys quit out there. Like, that's not okay. But, we live in a culture where it's like, people take the slightest thing the wrong way. So, I don't know. I mean, I understand wanting to be tough and coach these guys hard, but, yeah, some people just don't react that way. And it's, I think she's definitely, to some extent, lost the locker room, and that's the last thing you want to have here.
Yeah, and I don't think she's going to get fired or anything, but I think pressure is definitely on her. And look, they made a deep run to the tournament last year, so she does have, an ability to show a record of success from her time at Tennessee so far. But I think there's going to be a lot of pressure on her going into next year, considering how this season has kind of come apart at the very end.
Yeah, and again, it really all stems back from that South Carolina game, which is kind of ironic and tying into this whole discussion here. But, yeah, I'm looking forward to watching the SEC women's tournament. I think it's going to be real interesting, just besides South Carolina here. Like, they could face LSU tomorrow. That would be a pretty big game, especially for Kim Mulkey and that squad over there. That just like last time when we talked about who needs to win more, it's definitely going to be LSU that really needs to get the monkey off their back of just not beating South Carolina. So I'd imagine they'll play tomorrow if both teams win today.
You're going to enjoy my headline prediction coming up at the 10 o'clock hour, because it pertains to that exact situation and the pressure on Kim Mulkey. So we'll get to that coming up at about 10:45. But it's really interesting, all the possibilities of what South Carolina could see, assuming they beat Kentucky today, which, again, we feel good about their chances to do that. They would take on either LSU or Oklahoma coming up tomorrow. Of course, Oklahoma, the only team to beat them in conference play this season so far, so you could have a potential rematch there, which would obviously be a really big deal. You could take on, if you win that theoretical game, then you're looking at taking on potentially a Vanderbilt or a Texas in the championship game coming up on Sunday. Texas obviously beat South Carolina on Thanksgiving night out in Las Vegas, and Vanderbilt with Michaela Blakes has the SEC Player of the Year. So a lot of very juicy potential matchups of all teams that South Carolina has obviously seen, but different storylines baked in to all these potential opponents they could see this weekend.
Yeah, it's going to be real interesting. I think there's definitely a few teams out there that could potentially knock off South Carolina this weekend, but here's in the grand scheme of things, does it change anything? No. Like, South Carolina, for all intents and purposes, should still be, one of the national top number one seeds and hosting and everything. So, the tournament really should start and go through South Carolina, and even if they were to lose today or tomorrow or even Sunday, but another SEC championship would be a nice feather in the cap for what's, I think, arguably, I know a lot of people have said, I think Welly mentioned it yesterday, like, I do think this is Dawn's best coaching job just because of everything going on, all the injuries, all the adversity, and really finding a way. Like, she really has had to coach this team up this year.
Yeah, as you mentioned yesterday, 63 combined games missed by players with injury, with suspension, whatever it may be. So, yeah, it's been a really good coaching job, and obviously we'll see what the final result is coming up here in about a month or so. But this team looks as capable as any other team in the past of going on a deep run and maybe win a national championship. Of course, you got the UConns and the UCLAs and all that kind of stuff that you would encounter at the very end. But I don't doubt South Carolina's ability to beat anybody at this point.
No, I mean, they should win it all, but we'll see. I mean, who knows, honestly.
Pre-game coverage for that starting today at 11:30 right here on 107.5 The Game. Tip-off at noon. Again, Elijah Campbell going to be joining us on location, or at least on the road to Greenville, coming up here at 10:30 to preview this matchup coming up a little bit more. But baseball also in action this weekend. Doubleheader tomorrow, taking on the Princeton Tigers. We'll get into some of the conversations and storylines going into this weekend for Gamecock baseball coming up next. It is The Extra Point. Tyler Head and Jack Veltri with you here on your Friday on The Game. Welcome back in. Extra Point, Tyler Head and Jack Veltri along with you here on your Friday on the Game. Again, a very busy weekend of Gamecock sports, including 3 games over at Founders Park this weekend, welcoming in the Princeton Tigers of the Ivy League as South Carolina plays its last non-conference series of the season before heading on the road to Gainesville next weekend to take on the Florida Gators. And again, as we talked about yesterday, a little bit of a scheduling quirk because the Ivy League does value academics. They don't allow their teams to travel and miss class, so Princeton's not going to come in until later on today, which is why you'll get a doubleheader tomorrow. Game number 1 at 1 o'clock, game number 2 around probably 4:30 or something like that, 45-ish minutes after game 1 ends, as that typically goes. And then, of course, game 3 on Sunday.
Yeah, so it's a little bit of a unique schedule, and Princeton's had to already do this twice this season. Their first 2 weekends of the season, they went to NC State and had a doubleheader there. They won one of the games of the weekend, and then against Duke the following weekend out in Durham, they played another doubleheader and won one game in that series. So they're 2-5 on the year, but they do have some of the better wins that you could have on your schedule as a mid-major program, with wins over a ranked NC State team and then a win over a Duke team that was hosting a super regional last year. So it's 2 very good wins. But it's interesting because this team, you look at just their numbers. I hate to say it, I rarely try not to say this. Their numbers stink.
Oh, they're awful.
They're hitting 176 as a team with 5 homers and 20 RBIs overall. They have a 276 slugging percentage and a 260 on-base percentage. That's a little bit over a 500 OPS, which is awful. I mean, I think like the average OPS is like at least in the 700s. So they're about 200 points behind there offensively. So they're not great offensively. Then you look at their pitching numbers. They're kind of far worse. So South Carolina, for reference, only has, I think, 3 pitchers with an ERA that's above 4. Now, with Princeton, basically every pitcher on their staff other than one has an ERA at 4 or worse. The worst ERA on staff is 108, which is, I don't even know how it's possible. But the team ERA this year is 8.42 over 56 innings. They've struck out 43 batters and walked 43. So, and they've given up 13 home runs. So look, point being, games are not won on paper, but there is just, let's just say what it is. There's little excuse for South Carolina to sweep the series. I don't want to hear the tiredness excuse be brought up ever again after 3 games like it was after Northern Kentucky. You play a doubleheader tomorrow, play your guys the right way. If you don't want to play guys both games, it's fine. Play a few different guys. You should be able to beat Princeton with whoever's on the roster for South Carolina in these 2 games. You should be able to run rule, I would say, at least 1 to 2 of these games. I mean, this is the series where you get some confidence back. You pitch well, you hit well, and everything goes. If you do what you're supposed to do, you're going to sweep this series. And that should be, bar none, the expectation this weekend. Dropping a game, they've had some bad losses, trust me. But, I mean, dropping a series to not dropping a series, but dropping a game to Princeton would just be a really ugly look on top of everything else you've got going on.
It is really funny, and you mentioned that 176 batting average for a team. We were kind of saying the same thing about Army coming in a couple weeks ago, because I think their average after the Clemson series when open season was like 180 or something like that. It was pretty low. They didn't do a whole lot on the base path or at the plate against Clemson, and they came in and obviously put 9 runs up on South Carolina, in that game. So I'm hoping it's not the similar thing with Princeton. There's a little bit more of a longer, piece of data when it comes to them playing 7 games so far, as opposed to the 3 or 4 that Army had played up to that point. But yeah, this is a series that South Carolina should be able to obviously win, no doubt, but hopefully sweep and give you something going into next week. As we talked about the other day, there's really nothing that South Carolina can do over the course of, at that point before they played Upstate and before they played Charleston Southern. Now with 4 more games to go, 3 games against Princeton, 1 game against Citadel in the midweek before you go into Florida. There's nothing they can do that can make you feel better about the season, but there are plenty of things they can do that make you feel worse. And if you found yourself in 3 dogfights and you drop a game against Princeton, that's not going to do a lot to instill confidence in this fan base.
No. I mean, there's just no reason for them to lose another one of these games. But then again, I didn't think they were going to lose to Queens, and here we are. So, you're right in the sense that, like, none of these games really do much for South Carolina to change the overall opinion of how everyone feels about this team currently. But I'll tell you what, momentum's a real thing, and I think winning these 6 games over, the 2 midweek games you've already won, so you're off to a 2-0 start. You're a third of the way towards your goal before conference play. You sweep this series, and then you go to Citadel on Tuesday and you win that game. If you're 6-0 over this little week and a half stretch before heading out to Florida next Friday, I think you feel pretty good about where things are at. It's not great, but you're 13-5 overall. You're playing better baseball, hopefully. That's it. That's what these games are intended to help them figure out, is they got to get the offense going. Pitching's got to be a little bit better. Like, you could really benefit from winning these 6 games and heading into conference play with a little bit of juice and something going here.
Yesterday on the halftime show, Bill and I ran an impromptu poll on Twitter, and we asked the question, where are you with this team's with this year's team heading into the final non-conference series? The options are: we're going to be fine, I'm holding out hope, and it's over, burn it down. It's over, burn it down won with 64% of the vote. I'm holding out hope only got 32.9, and we're going to be fine is at 2.5. So this fan base is at a fever pitch right now, really, and it's interesting with the way the first 3 series in conference play line up with, Florida, Arkansas, and Georgia. Realistically, if things are going sideways, you could be like 1-7 or 1-8 or 2-7 in conference play, and effectively your season's over at that point in time, because if you can't manage more than 2 wins in your first 3 series, there's nobody that's going to believe you're going to be able to figure something out in those final 21 games of conference play to make your record respectable enough to be in conversation for the tournament. So the month of March is going to tell us everything we need to know about this team.
Absolutely. I mean, those first few weekends, really, against Florida, and then you host Arkansas at home. Like, I think those 2 weekends really in particular. I know you go to Georgia at the end of the month, but definitely the first 2 weekends are going to be the telltale of if you can go maybe like, I don't want to say like you probably want to find a way to go 3-3. If you can go 3-3 over those first 2 series, I think you take it. Like, considering where this team was at, you're already halfway to reaching your win total in conference play from last season. So that's a good start in the right direction. But you can't – you got to win at least one game on the road. The rule is always win a game on the road, don't get swept, and then win your series at home. It's going to be tough, but I think you can certainly do it. It's just, I mean, again, you got to get this offense going. The offense has got to be better. Pitching's got to be a little bit better. The defense, I think, is what it is, but they got to be better too. I mean, just across the board, and that's why this weekend is huge for South Carolina, just from getting right standpoint.
Those games tomorrow can be heard on our sister station, 98.5 WOMG, with the doubleheader starting with pregame at 12:30. Again, on 98.5 WOMG. And then coming up on Sunday, you can listen to game number 3 right here on 107.5 The Game, with pregame coverage starting at 1:15. We'll get into some of those pitching performances coming up next as we examine what we've seen so far and what to expect this weekend from South Carolina's starters. It is The Extra Point. Tyler Head and Jack Feltry on your Friday on The Game. Ty right here for our friends over at Twin Peaks. We are fast approaching St. Patrick's Day in Columbia. Get ready to go green at Twin Peaks this St. Patrick's Day, because you can join the lodge on March 17th for Irish-inspired specials, ice-cold 29-degree green beers, and all your scratch-made favorites like loaded nachos, crispy wings, and hearty entrees to fuel the fun. You can also catch every March Madness game on their massive screens with wall-to-wall coverage, frosty drafts, and the friendliest crew in town. No better spot to celebrate luck of the Irish or just crush some game day grub than with our friends over at Twin Peaks, located at 600 Gervais Street, right here in the Vista. Your lodge for great food, great drinks, and great vibes. We'll see you there. Welcome back in. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head and Jack Felcher with you here on your Friday on the Game, talking Gamecock baseball as they get set to take on Princeton in a doubleheader tomorrow, which is your next opportunity to win the Crescent Construction Grand Slam contest. If Gamecock hitter goes yard with the bases loaded, you can win all the cash in the pot that goes up by $25 every game. Sponsored by our friends over at Crescent Construction. Go to 1075thegame.com if you've not already to sign up for the Crescent Construction Grand Slam contest. Again, it's been an up and down season for South Carolina so far, but what we have seen is some really good pitching performances at times, including last weekend where Josh Gunther made his first career start, and unfortunately the series didn't go the way that we wanted it to, but cemented himself, at least for that night, in the lore of South Carolina and the Clemson baseball rivalry with his stellar performance against the Tigers. And obviously we'll learn later today what the exact rotation looks like, but he definitely is going to be starting game number 1 tomorrow. I would be shocked if he wasn't.
I think the rotation just will remain the same. I think you're going to have Gunther go game 1 tomorrow, and then Amp Phillips go game 2. And then on Sunday, you have Riley Goodman go. Now, and I'm sure some people are probably like, oh, why is Riley Goodman going to be in the rotation? I think you give this guy some time. I mean, look, he's a freshman, essentially, right? He's a redshirt freshman, but he missed all last year with Tommy John. So this is a guy that really was arguably, I mean, he was definitely one of your top pitchers in the preseason in the fall, just with the way he was commanding the strike zone. But that's the thing. He really hasn't commanded anything so far this season. His control's been all over the place. He's thrown a lot of wild pitches. He's walking a lot of guys. He's got 10 strikeouts this year and 8 walks. The velocity's really good on his pitches, and I was talking with a former Gamecock pitcher yesterday about just why is Goodman really struggling, and some of it has to do with his arm slot. He kind of throws a little bit. He's got his arm kind of behind his back a little bit, and he's trying I think to do too much with his sliders is what I was told, and you see it, and look, he could throw that slider for strikes and get some guys swinging. We saw that against Clemson, and we've seen that so far this year. But it hasn't been consistent, and I think that's the problem, is he just really hasn't pitched overly well. And I think a start on Sunday would be really good for him to get a chance to build some confidence back up. Like, if he goes out there and pitches, let's say even just those 4 innings and doesn't give up a run, he's got like 4 strikeouts and 1 walk, and the wild pitches are at 0, that's a great start for him. I would take that all day out of him, because at that point you could easily just go to the back end of your bullpen, go with Brandon Stone and Alex Valentin to kind of eat up the rest of the innings and basically do what you did on Wednesday here.
And I really enjoyed that breakdown that Ethan Carter gave you yesterday on GC Live, and I recommend anybody go out there and watch it. You put the about 4.5 minute clip up on your Twitter as well, because he really went into depth on what he's seeing out of Riley Goodman. You mentioned arm slot there, and maybe overcompensating a little bit when it comes throwing his fastball, trying to aim things. And look, I was never a phenomenal pitcher. I did it for a couple years as I was coming up. And again, while I wasn't great at it, I do remember one of the first things I was ever told is don't aim your pitches. When you aim, you're usually going to miss. And again, especially if you're getting into a situation where you're trying to overcompensate a little bit, I could see a pitcher running into those kind of problems. And I don't know specifically if that's what's wrong with Riley, but it was a good breakdown that Ethan Carter gave you yesterday.
It just felt very detailed and I think necessary after, the other day where, you're asking Paul what adjustments were made, and it's kind of just a little bit vague. And then, it did sound like he didn't know what was going on. And then you have to ask Terry and all this. So why not just ask a guy that's been there before, done that? The guy's won a College World Series. He was the winning pitcher in one of those games against Coastal Carolina in 2010. He's definitely had some success. So it was good to have Ethan's on with me every Thursday on GC Live. So it's nothing new, but having him on there, I definitely wanted him to break down what was going on with Riley, just because he, as a former pitcher, can just see it just as well as anyone. And yeah, I mean, there's clearly something up, but it's not anything he can't fix.
I also think about this from a competence standpoint, and this was a conversation I think we had going into last weekend's series against Clemson, where, again, he had gotten knocked around a little bit by Army the week before. So removing him completely from the weekend rotation can really hurt confidence in a lot of ways. And for a young guy that's just getting his first opportunities in college, you don't want to affect that because, again, pitching is such a mental game. Moving him to Sunday obviously keeps him in the weekend rotation, but he was also put in a situation where he's making his first career road start in a pivotal game number 3 that South Carolina had to win the series in a raucous environment up there at Doug Kingsmore Stadium. I'm not saying that's why he struggled, but it certainly was a lot of things going against him. And again, he just had trouble really finding the zone in that game. And again, when you need to figure out your rotation before you get into SEC play, I would say this is his last proven opportunity against Princeton this weekend, or else maybe you do think about another option in that third slot coming up next weekend against Florida. But if he can pitch well against Princeton, I'm assuming on Sunday, staying the game 3 starter, then you should feel okay, hopefully, about him pitching against Florida next weekend.
Especially with Alex Philpott on the way back. Like I'll probably ask Paul about this today, just so we can get a clear final update, because honestly, you go back to a few weeks ago, I think he was saying, it was either 2 weeks ago, maybe last week, after the first game against Clemson, where he did say that Cullen Horowitz and Philpott are on track to be back, and they should potentially be back against Citadel next Tuesday, potentially, to get some innings in. So they're not going to, like, a guy like Philpott probably would have made the rotation out of the preseason. I doubt he would. Maybe he would start the midweek game, who knows, but it's not like he's going to be ready to go throw 95 pitches, right? Like, he's going to be a guy that it takes a little bit of time to build up. So it would be really nice for Riley to go out here and have a pretty decent outing that way, because I think, honestly, either way, whatever happens this weekend, I do think you stick with him in the weekend for just at least through the Florida series. And then once you get Philpott, assuming he's back next week, a little bit of time to ramp up and get his pitch count back to at least like 65, then I think you start throwing him in the weekend rotation, just like the plan was all along. But I think Riley, it would put you in a tough spot if Riley isn't able to go out there and pitch well. You have other options for guys who could start, like Stone. I highly doubt you're throwing Valentine out there. I think they like him in that closer role. Stone would be the most likely option, but Stone's done really well out of relief. He's been South Carolina's best pitcher, I think, this year, just from an ERA standpoint, a really just stuff standpoint. I mean, he was throwing 94 the other day, so he's definitely improved his velo. He just looks very comfortable wherever South Carolina throws him. And he was throwing well when he was starting games, but I really think it would be beneficial if Riley just pitches well on Sunday, even if it's not amazing, just because I think he belongs in this rotation.
I think also an opportunity to tomorrow, again, assuming he's the Game 2 starter, for Ant Phillips to have a little bit of a bounce back as well, because he got knocked around a little bit in Game 2 against Clemson last week. Obviously had a really strong outing, a really strong showing in his first couple of outings here at South Carolina. So, again, a confidence builder for him as well, hopefully coming up tomorrow.
Yeah, definitely a big confidence builder. I was a little surprised he didn't do too well on Saturday against Clemson. I think the main thing was that Clemson was just jumping all over his pitches. I don't know what exactly was the cause of that. Was there something he was doing in his delivery that kind of just gave it away? Like, was he tipping his pitches? I don't know. But Clemson wasn't getting fooled at all. So, and he really just made one big mistake, which was the 3-run homer to Nate Savoy. Otherwise, maybe that's a little bit of a different game. I think he's a great pitcher. I think he's going to just be better from that moment for sure. But, yeah, you definitely want good starts across the board this weekend. You want Gunther to continue to pitch the way he has. You want Goodman and Phillips to carry over and pitch well. That way you have, like, those are your 3 best guys right now in terms of starting rotation guys.
A quick note on the offense here, and Maneri has not been shy about pulling guys when they make mistakes. And the other day, Logan Sutter got picked off at first base, and he was promptly replaced in that game against Charleston Southern. But if you've not been paying attention, Logan Sutter's been hitting the ball really, really well. And I'm wondering if that's going to carry over to this weekend, or if Maneri's like, hey, you're hitting the ball well, let's put you in the starting lineup.
I don't know, man. It's tough to say because he pulled him like literally the half inning right afterwards. Like, it was like the bottom of the 5th, I think, where that happened, where he got picked off, and the top of the 6th, Jack Reynolds is out at second base. I don't know. I think Logan needs to be in this lineup. He is definitely he was your best hitter you brought in from the transfer portal.
And we're finally seeing it.
Yes, we are seeing. It was mind-boggling to me that he didn't play for like 3 games after the Salute the Service weekend. Like, his next action didn't come until Sunday against Clemson. That is inexcusable. I get Paul said it was a coach's decision and he's not hurt, but it's seriously, it's silly. Like, if we're holding grudges over guys getting picked off and all that, this guy gives you a chance to win, right? Make sure he's being smarter and learns from his mistakes. I don't know if he's necessarily going to learn from a mistake just being benched. Like, what does that really tell the guy that you brought in here, probably paid a lot of money to bring him in here just to bench him, right? Like, you got to play him this weekend. Find a place for him to line up. There is certainly a way, because I'll tell you what, Dawson Harmon really hasn't been impressive so far. Will Craddock can play anywhere in the field. Oh, and by the way, you have an open DH spot right now with Reese Moore out for the rest of the year. So there's really no excuse for Logan Sutter not to be in the lineup every day moving forward.
Yes, Sutter's played in 3 out of the last 5 games, 4 of 10, 3 RBIs, 2 doubles, and a home run. So he is finally starting to hit his stride a little bit, and hopefully he'll be a feature part of the offense this upcoming weekend against Princeton. We'll come back, wrap up hour number 1. How good is the month of March from a sports perspective? We'll discuss that on the other side. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head and Jack Feltry here on The Game. Welcome back in. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head and Jack Feltry along with you here on your Friday on The Game. We are officially into the month of March, one of the best months of the entire sports calendar year, and it means we are only mere days away, really a week or so away, from finally getting to hear this. What does that do for you, Jack?
Fires me up. That is for sure. I love that sound.
The March Madness theme that you'll hear across CBS and TNT and True TV and all those networks as you're watching the tournament play out here in a couple weeks. One of the best sports themes there is. I wouldn't put it at number one. I still think the SEC on CBS, and I think the Big Ten still uses it, is number one. Round Ball Rock's up there, but this maybe is number three for me.
Yeah, it's definitely a good theme, good jingle. I like it for sure. It definitely does fire you up. I will say, I love hearing, Augusta with the Masters and
That's
whatnot.
a good one too.
That's a great one. That's another great time of year. There's a lot of good ones for sure.
Is March your favorite sports month? Is that number one for you?
I was just thinking about that during the break. It's a good one because it's this year you have March Madness. It's the start of opening day is March 25th.
It's the earliest open day I think we've ever had,
yeah,
right?
it's really early this year. It's on you get the standalone game on that Wednesday, and then everyone else is on like that Thursday and Friday. You also have the WBC, which starts it's already started, which is really cool. So that adds to it, but it's not an every year thing. It's every 3 years. So March is a good month. I don't know if I'd say it's the best month. I think October's really good because you have all four sports going on at the same time. Like you had the sports equinox.
Yep.
Last year on October 27th. So the fact you can have all four sports going on at the same time, I think is really good. The one negative to March is that there's no football going on. So I think that drags it down a little bit. It's a great month on its own. It's probably top three. I really do enjoy April as well. Like I said before, I really enjoy the Masters. I think it is always must-see television. Always enjoy that. And honestly, you get the RBC Heritage the week after. Like, you get some good golf going on in the month of April for sure. You got baseball going on. And honestly, also in April, you have the national championship for college hoops going on too. So that's really good as well. And then playoffs are getting going for NHL, NBA. So I would say in October is probably number one for me. And then you get April and then March.
I think that's fair. October is definitely number one for me too. You have, of course, the MLB postseason going on. You're getting into the games that really matter when it comes to college football, because that's when everybody's in conference play at that point in time, and you're kind of starting to separate the pretenders from the contenders. NFL season in full swing. You mentioned the sports equinoxes, hockey and NBA get rolling a little bit later on this year. So I think that's unequivocally number one. There's nothing that can knock it off that pedestal. March probably is second, and March Madness carries a lot of weight on that. And look, college baseball is not for everyone. We here locally obviously care about it. So I think from a national standpoint, that doesn't carry as much weight, but it gives us a lot of things to be invested in here locally. You're right. The Masters coming in April obviously helps that be in that conversation for number three. I think November is also a month as well if you're into college basketball as things get rolling there.
It's a good one.
Some good non-conference matchups. You're getting into the nitty-gritty of college football and obviously the NFL season as they're coming down to their end. As spaced out as things get in the month of December, I still think with bowl games and now the college football playoff and the push for the playoffs in the NFL, I think that's got to be up there in the conversation as well.
Yeah, it's up there. And the other thing with March is you have college baseball going on and you have SEC play getting going. You also have all the conference tournaments going on right now. I mean, March is definitely it's up there for sure. It's going to be getting a medal in this for sure. But I would definitely say I think we both agree October is unequivocally probably number one. There's really not a ton of bad months. Like even in the well,
yeah, there's some rough ones.
Okay, what would you say are the rough ones? Because even in the ones that aren't as jam packed, you still have stuff going on like summer.
Yeah,
you still have baseball going on. You have the All-Star Game, Home Run Derby. You're going to have, other things like that going on.
July is the least busy sports month because quite literally baseball is the only real major sport that's still happening. You're kind of in the dog days. You're right. You do have the All-Star Game and stuff like that are marquee events to see. And I think it also depends on how well your team is playing, because if your team is already, struggling through the midpoint of the season by the All-Star break, you're probably checked out a little bit more. So I think the way your team's playing at that point in time also dictates how you view the month of July. But from a busyness standpoint, you also have, the 1 day or 2 days a year where there's no major sports going on. That's when they have the ESPYs. July is definitely the lightest month. Now, we here locally, of course, you got media days and stuff like that as you push to the start of the college football season. So that gives us a little bit more substance, but I'd say that one's probably on the lower end, if not maybe in last place.
Probably. I would probably agree because, like, June, you got the NBA Finals going on. You got the Stanley Cup. May is pretty good because you got baseball's really in the thick of things. Like, the weather's getting warmer just across the board. You got the NFL draft going on in April. Like, there's July's probably, as it pains me as a July birthday to say that because I also enjoy.
Well, the good thing is it gives you the ability to do a lot of other things, right?
That's true.
And look, for you following the Yankees, me following the Braves, like, all right, tune in for the game at 7 o'clock tonight. But the rest of the day, wide open. You can go out and do things, enjoy weather, go to the lake or whatever it may be. You don't feel like you're constantly missing things, whereas opposed to, like, if you were gone all day on a Saturday in October and you weren't near a TV, you're like, oh my God, I've missed so many things on this day or that weekend or whatever it may be. Don't get that same effect in July.
This is why you don't schedule weddings in fall.
Listen, as somebody that's been to my share of fall weddings, unfortunately, I know the feeling. 3 years ago now, it was the day that Carolina played at Missouri. Now, that game didn't go Carolina's way, but I was at a wedding, and there was no cell service there, so I missed everything that day, and I felt like I was in the twilight zone because I didn't know what was happening in the sports world that entire day.
Yeah, you didn't miss much from South Carolina, Missouri.
No, when I watched the replay, I realized, I was like, well, I didn't really miss anything here. But, yeah, I think we can unequivocally say October the best sports month, but March definitely there in the top three, and excited to get the tournament rolling coming up here in a couple weeks. Corey Parson going to join us on the other side as we run the numbers, diving into all things college basketball coming up next. It is the Extra Point here on the game.
All right, as we close out the first hour here, I want to tell you guys real quick about one of our show sponsors. If you are a small business owner, a church, or other entity, and you have a new HVAC system, AAA Heating and Air has exciting news for you. AAA now offers financing to qualified organizations to aid them in installing a new light commercial HVAC system. It's as easy as calling AAA Heating and Air for a quote or finding them online at callAAAtoday.com. Tell them Jack from 107.5 The Game sent you on over. At AAA Heating and Air, they've got your back. They're offering up to 12-month payment plans on repairs with no credit check required. That's right. No need to worry about your credit score. As long as you're a homeowner with a valid bank account, you'll be good to go. Take control of your comfort today by giving a call to AAA Heating and Air at 803-677-1500. Again, number to call AAA Heating and Air is going to be 803-677-1500. Give them a call today and breathe easy again.
Welcome back in. Extra Point, hour number 2. Tyler Head and Jack Veltri along with you here on your Friday on the Game, getting you set for a busy weekend of Gamecock sports, starting off with women's basketball that gets rolling coming up at noon with pregame coverage starting with Brad Muller live from Greenville at 11:30 right here on 107.5 The Game. And with a busy weekend and a busy month of March, we got a lot of things to break down with our guy Corey Parson joining us now on the AAA Heating and Air phone lines as we run the numbers each and every Friday at 10 o'clock. Didn't join us last week as he was a little bit busy, but Corey, glad to have you back. How are we doing today?
Doing well. Glad to be back. Time to switch the page a little bit, start to get ready for some college hoops. Obviously, March Madness, super duper huge when it comes to the world of wagering on sports. So happy to get into it and look at some of these numbers and break some stuff down and see where we may not be able to find some winners, but we may be able to find some opportunity to make some money.
Real quick before we look at the numbers, Jack and I had the debate at the end of the last hour. Where does March fall for you on favorite sports months of the year?
Oh, that's a good one right there. October is probably number 1.
Agree.
And I would say that March would be number 2. Obviously, growing up in New York City, October used to be magical. Now October turns into when are we going to get rid of Aaron Boone? But October you have the NFL in full swing. You got the World Series going on. NBA is starting back, so October's big, but March is right behind it with the action that takes place in the NCAA tournament. And also, I'd like to do a lot of NFL draft prep as well, so that you kind of get into that stuff in March too, so good times.
Well, the month of March gets started with the conference tournaments. Women's conference tournament underway, as I just mentioned. South Carolina will tip off against Kentucky coming up today at noon just up the road in Greenville. And despite the fact that they are the number 1 seed, Corey, not the favorite going into the weekend to win the SEC women's tournament.
Yeah, very interesting stuff right here. I looked at that and I was curious. My first thought was, wow, how many years has it been since South Carolina has not been the favorite to win the conference tournament? Well, that is the case this year as the Texas Longhorns and Vic Schaefer's crew come in as the favorite to win the SEC tournament going on in Greenville, as you mentioned. They're even money at plus 100, depending on where you shop at. South Carolina is coming in at plus 140. Obviously, you get Carolina at that number to win the conference tournament, which has kind of become their invitational over the past couple years. Obviously, huge home court advantage. This can be an opportunity right here to get a good start to the month of March. Now, the odds makers are not stupid. They must know something that we know, but there's no way that you can just let Carolina hang out there at plus 140.
Let's take a look at the just overall women's college basketball odds to win the national championship. You got UConn as the favorite right now, UCLA second best odds. Carolina's got the third best odds, and then Texas, LSU, Vanderbilt, so on and so forth. I'll ask you, who do you like in terms of the odds, and maybe also who is like one, not necessarily, maybe like a sleeper kind of that to keep your eye on to maybe win the national championship?
So let's start with the Huskies, who are a huge favorite to win the women's national championship this year. Seen it as high as minus 300. That's insane when you have a team like South Carolina out there. So what you're really seeing is UConn is kind of locked into a mission, and that's to be an undefeated national champion. Now, we know what that feels like around these parts of town. If I'm not mistaken, Gino has never done that. So that undefeated national championship is a big carrot that's hanging out there that they're clearly going for. So at minus 300, that's a huge number. You kind of got to get off of UConn at this point, unless you're a heavy roller and want to put some serious money on it. Now, when you look at the rest of the field, once again, I've seen Carolina on some books as high as plus 875. You have to take a shot at that. Not this, when you take a shot at that, what you're looking for is a Final Four matchup, or we'll see how the bracket falls, or maybe even a a Final Four matchup or a national championship game, because when that game does happen, which we think it will at some point, they're not going to be 30-point underdogs. So you're going to have an advantage against the books. So you got to take a ticket out, especially at that number, on Carolina to win the national championship. And then you can hedge against it once you get to the Final Four national championship.
Well, and Corey Parson joining us as we run the numbers each and every Friday here on the game. I do think it's interesting because, look, the Big East is not as tough as some of these other conferences are, across women's basketball, certainly. And typically in years past, we've had a matchup between South Carolina and UConn in the non-conference, usually around February, that can really give a gauge of which of those teams is ahead of the other. We don't have that this year. Yes, UConn has played teams like Michigan. They played teams like Southern Cal going back to the non-conference back in the months of November and December, but really we haven't seen them going up against anybody of that high caliber since we've turned the calendar to the new year. So I do wonder, had they played a Carolina back in February or whatever, how much these numbers may look different.
Exactly. That's a big thing about it this year. And see, like, one of the things that when you talk about women's college basketball that you got to take into consideration is a lot of these numbers are not as sharp as they would be in the men's game or the NBA or anything else. Like, we don't even really have a line that I've seen yet for today's game. And that is because people who know women's college basketball can really beat the book up. So you got to take that into consideration as well. So the odds makers are just looking at Geno, they're looking at a healthy team, and they're looking at a team with a mission. What I would say to them is, as you mentioned, you didn't that game did not happen this year due to schedule conflicts, whatever the case may be. But also, you got to take into consideration that, a team like Carolina has consistently gotten better over the course of the season. As far as sleepers on the women's side, I think you can never really say that LSU is a sleeper. And also, Vanderbilt is a very interesting team as well.
We'll take a look over the men's side now as, again, those conference tournaments for the major conferences get rolling coming up next week, and all the mid-majors, or most of the mid-majors, in action as of right now, determining who's going to be going to the big dance for them. And I was reading an article the other day of On3 where they've kind of separated about 8 teams into that category of who can realistically win the national championship. Of course, Duke, Michigan, Arizona, Florida, teams like that in there. And when you kind of look at the odds for who's going to win it all coming up in April, it kind of reflects that there's about a separation of about 6 or 7 teams and then everybody else.
Yeah, and you see right now, Duke is a team that is up there. Right now, Duke is the favorite to win the national championship. Obviously, you know what the Brotherhood brings. They're going to come. It's going to be this strong team. They're going to be playing so deep into the tournament. If taking on the Blue Devils is not a bad idea as well. And obviously, teams like Arizona and Michigan have gained some steam throughout the course of the season. Actually, Michigan is a team that it can cause the sports books some problem if they do happen so to cut down the nets. But the team that I'm looking at, coming in anywhere, depending on where you shop at, between 8-1 and 10-1, is Houston. I always like a team that, was right there the year before, because now they come into that next season trying to finish the job, unfinished business. Obviously, one of the best head coaches in college basketball as well. So they're a big liability to the books right now. And Houston's a team that I would roll with. Another team that's a liability to the books, and I want to tie this together to the women's game as well to kind of show you how things are changing in the sports betting landscape. Prior to 2018, the Sharps were all in Las Vegas. Well, now you kind of can look at the Northeast as really the sports betting capital. So that can be why you see such a heavy number on UConn, because the tri-state area is going to come in on one of their own teams. And you take that to the men's game, a big liability is St. John's, because the tri-state area is coming in heavy on one of their teams. And obviously with St. John's, you got Rick Pitino, who can go on a run at any given time. So the changing landscape of the sports betting world can kind of shift and affect some of these numbers. But I don't really think St. John's has it this year, but I definitely think Houston has it.
I was about to ask, do you have to keep when you're looking at? Because I mean, I feel like for March Madness specifically with the men's, it's got to be like one of the tougher things to project. Like Duke's the favorite right now, but I mean, honestly, I mean, let's be real. We've seen over the years with Duke, especially, like they could easily go down in like the round of 32 or something. So I'm kind of asking here: do you have to keep the upsets in mind when you're looking at these games?
So really, if you really want to be successful, you can't print out a bracket. Or like people don't really print out brackets no more, but I still do. You can't really, hop on a computer and fill out a bracket on March 15th and think, you're going to have a good shot. You need to be watching college basketball throughout the course of the season to figure out who are the mid-majors that can become that Cinderella team. One of the things that I like to do, and you want to do a little research, look at teams that win road conference games. Those are very tough environments. Those are environments that make teams mentally tough. If you can go on the road and consistently get conference victories, that would normally mean you're a team that can play in high-pressure situations in the NCAA tournament. So I like to look at teams like that can go on the road and win in conference. But when you look at those teams that can do that, they're kind of the teams at the top. So you got to be able to find that team like that, and, be careful with the 5-12 matchups. It looks like the 6-11s are starting to breed more upsets, a 14 and a 3. You'll see some upsets there as well. So, those teams that stay together, play together, where you may have guys that have been starting for 3+ years on one team, those teams are very dangerous. And obviously, in today's basketball world, a team that can hit the 3 is never out the game, and a team that can hit the 3 can blow you out as well.
Yeah, no doubt about it. That's what makes the month of March so exciting. This time next week, we'll be talking about the, or at least the major men's conference tournaments wrapping up, and then we'll be looking ahead to March Madness getting rolling the week after that. Corey, man, we appreciate it as always, and we'll talk to you next week.
Good stuff, my boys. Holla at y'all.
Corey Parson there joining us as we run the numbers each and every Friday. As we get into the month of March, there's already a lot of madness going on in the hoops world, and we'll dive into some of the headlines that have come out this week already. Coming up next, it is the Extra Point, Tyler Head and Jack Feltry with you on your Friday here on The Game.
matchup she wants to against Cordesia Harris, but Harris. That's the matchup she wants to against Cordesia Harris, but Harris just does a really good job in body positioning of not allowing any free passes.
We've got some swinging down in the paint now, and tempers have flared between Houston and Cordesia Harris. They're having to separate the players and bring them back to the bench, and now that will probably end up being technical fouls and problems. We see an official down on the floor in the paint.
Welcome back in. It is the Extra Points. Tyler Head and Jack Felcher along with you here on your Friday on the Game. That was the call the other day in the Sun Belt Women's Tournament out in Pensacola as South Alabama was taking on Coastal Carolina. A brawl ensues in the late stages of that game. South Alabama will go on to win 80-70, but Tracy Houston of Coastal gets into it with Cordesia Harris of South Alabama. As you heard there, a referee gets knocked to the ground. And amidst that brawl, was treated there on scene at the game, but a bad look all around for that game the other day. Chance Miller, the athletic director, of course, who we know well here in Columbia, issued an apology for what happened there with their athlete Tracy Houston, and just a bad look all around for what happened the other day at the Sun Belt Women's Tournament.
Yeah, Houston is done for the rest of the year, which is crazy. You got 8 players that got ejected. Again, the ref getting knocked down was kind of wild, right? I mean, how often do you see that where a ref just gets knocked out cold?
No, I can't recall it, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
And,
not by, and I'm sure it wasn't intentional, but he got clipped and
yeah, no, the referee just got caught in the line of fire, but it was a nasty hit. I can't remember if they hit their head or not on the floor.
It says hit the head or neck area by Houston as the ref was attempting to push her away from Cordesia Harris.
Yeah, so that was a rough scene there the other day, and South Alabama did go on to win their third round game as well. And I'm seeing, they're in action today, taking on Marshall in the fourth round there of the Sun Belt tournament. As I believe they would have to win the tournament to get their way into the NCAA tournament at a 5-13 record so far. But bad situation there that occurred the other day. Thankfully, it seems like that ref's going to be okay. But you never want to see that kind of thing. We see things escalate on the basketball court, but rarely do you see an official get knocked out like that.
Yeah, so pretty crazy to hear that, and it's just one of a few crazy things that are going on in college basketball right now.
No doubt about it. Well, one of the conversation points earlier on in the week, and it's been a conversation point for a while, but Bruce Pearl really escalated it the other day, and I believe he's on the TNT basketball coverage now, but the debate about Miami of Ohio and if they deserve to be in the NCAA tournament if they don't end up winning the MAC tournament here in the month of March, because despite being undefeated, they don't have a great resume. We talked about it the other day. I believe that Akron is their only win across Quad 1 or Quad 2, and it's Quad 2 victory. Everything else is in Quad 3 or 4, so they don't have a lot of quality wins to fall back on. And, of course, Bruce Pearl, as no surprise, was stumping for Auburn to be included because they're the first team on the outside looking in as of right now when it comes to the latest bracketology. And we accused him the other day of man, this is nepotism. He's just rooting for his son, who, of course, is now the coach at Auburn after he retired before the season started. And I'll give Bruce Pearl credit because he went on Outkick the other day and did not shy away from that being exactly the case of why he was talking about things that way.
Look, regarding Stephen, I was having fun with that whole argument. I'll state the case for teams like TCU or Auburn or different teams. TCU had a great win last night beating Texas Tech. Huge win, puts them in a tournament. Ohio State has a huge win over Purdue, may put them in a tournament, okay? When right now Auburn is on the bubble. They are either going to play their way in or play their way out. Okay, that's going to be determined. Had they beaten Ole Miss last Saturday, they beat LSU last night, it may have been enough. Looks to me like they got to win one more to get in. That's objectively how I feel. Am I rooting for my son to make the NCAA tournament? Of course I am. Did I help my son get the job? Nepotism? Of course I did.
Jack, did you ever see 8 Mile?
I have not.
With Eminem. Have you at least seen the scene where he's in the rap battle?
Yes.
Where he basically insults himself then hand the microphone to his opponent and says, here, tell them something about me that they don't already know. I kind of feel like that's what Bruce Pearl is doing. Like, that's all the things we said about him the other day. It's like, oh, you're only doing that because your son's coaching the team. He only got the job because of nepotism. And he's like, yeah, that's exactly right. And it's like, dang it, I can't be mad at that because you're telling the truth.
So, all right, with Auburn here, we can get back to Miami, Ohio in a second, but with Auburn specifically, so they're 7-10 in conference play. They're 16-14 overall. They got one more game coming up on Saturday at Alabama. So that's a great opportunity to win that game right there. Here's the thing. I think Auburn, no matter what, needs to probably win at least 2 games out in Nashville next week at the SEC tournament. They're going to be probably playing on day 1 of the tournament next Wednesday. So, and they might honestly get paired up with South Carolina. Who knows? So they got to probably win 2 games, in my opinion. You probably do need to win tomorrow, I would say, to at least kind of solidify yourself, right? Because I think, like he said, they are on the bubble right now. They're the first team out. A win over a ranked Alabama team who's playing a little bit better right now on the road in Tuscaloosa, primetime game. A lot of eyeballs are going to be on that one. That's a really good opportunity for Auburn. Now, if they lose that game, I still feel like they need to at least win a few games at the SEC tournament, but I don't know. I don't know if I'd put them in. Like, if it's coming down to like a Miami, Ohio, if they don't win the conference tournament, or a team like Auburn, I'm picking Miami, Ohio. Now, I know you mentioned it. They don't have the resume that would speak to what an SEC program would have. They have the one quad 2 win over Akron, but besides that, it's relatively mostly quad 3 and quad 4 wins. But what they're doing right now is super impressive. And if they go wire to wire the entire regular season undefeated and then win a game or 2 before losing out at the MAC tournament, then I would have no problem putting them in. I think, honestly, at that point, maybe you just get 2 MAC teams. And especially if it's like Akron and Miami, Ohio, like, that's fine. But, yeah, a team like Auburn could really not finish their case, but make it a lot easier if they were to win tomorrow and then go on a little bit of a run at the SEC tournament. They would be a lock at that point.
When you hear Bruce Pearl outright admit to nepotism being the reason that Stephen Pearl is his son, it's true. And, of course, the timing of when he decided to retire, with the day before practice started, you didn't really have any other option. Players couldn't obviously leave at that point in time. How do I feel as an Auburn fan seeing how the season's gone? Because if Bruce Pearl retires after making the Final Four last year, right after the season ends, they have an opportunity to go out and get pretty much whatever coach they would want. You could bring in a lot of other players from the transfer portal, and you could probably have a more successful season. Now you're kind of stuck in this experiment with Stephen Pearl that he'll get another opportunity next year. But if I'm an Auburn fan, I don't know how high I put my hopes for that, as opposed to, again, if Pearl would have done it a different way, you could be in a better spot right now.
So basically since January 31st, so the start of February on, they've lost 7 of their last 9 games. They have a win over LSU. They have a win over Kentucky. The win over Kentucky definitely helps, but beating LSU, I think most teams are supposed to be doing that right now, with them being at the bottom of the SEC. And then you have the game against Alabama. Like, this is the win that could really right the ship in a lot of ways and save things for them, because they're 16-14 right now. I think with a win tomorrow and at least 1 win in the SEC tournament, probably need 2. Let's say you're 19-15. With a 8-10 conference record, I think you're in.
We'll see, but it's definitely not been the season that people were hoping for, right?
Like, what do you think they need? Like, does a win, if they lose tomorrow, 2 wins in the SEC tournament do it?
Probably. I think. Yeah, if you lose tomorrow, because that'd be what, into the quarterfinals. If you win 2 games.
Yeah, you're into the quarters on Friday.
And again, you got to see how the bracket matches up and what teams you'd be beating and who you'd match up with. That might be enough, just considering the strength of the SEC. I will say Lenardi didn't throw him any bones the other day when talking about them being the first team out. So we'll see. But again, we're in the middle of this weird Stephen Pearl experiment. And if I'm an Auburn fan, I'm not pleased with Bruce Pearl's honesty in the way this all shook out, if I'm being honest.
But it's true.
But it is true.
It's
And
true.
Again, you got to give him credit for at least being honest about it, I guess. We'll get it back into women's basketball coming up next on the other side. Elijah Campbell, probably still en route to Bon Scores Wellness Arena, going to be joining us to preview this matchup today with Kentucky, as well as the rest of the weekend for the South Carolina women as they get set to hopefully claim another conference tournament crown. It is the Extra Point. It's our head and Jack Veltri here on the game. Welcome back in. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head and Jack Veltri along with you here on your Friday on the Game, getting you set for the SEC Women's Tournament. Carolina in action coming up at noon, taking on Kentucky, a rematch from Sunday. Pregame coverage starting at 11:30 with Brad Muller live from Bon Scores Wellness Arena, where Elijah Campbell is on the road to as of right now. As we're bringing you coverage all weekend long for us at 107.5 The Game. But Elijah, before we get into what's going to be happening on the hardwood, I have a special message for you.
For today's episode, we didn't think we could use happy birthday for, legal reasons, so we had a backup plan. Listen to this. Yay, 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 it's your birthday. Hey, 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 it's your day. It's not Monday, it's not Tuesday, it's not Wednesday, it's not Thursday, it's not Friday, it's not Saturday, it's not Thursday. It's your birthday.
Well, today's not technically your birthday. It is on Sunday, so allow us and Mike Tyson be the first to wish you a happy birthday.
Oh, that's fantastic. Oh, thank you guys so much. I was not expecting that. I was not expecting Mike Tyson bit to start the segment, but I definitely appreciate it. Yeah, not today, but Sunday, and get to wrap up the weekend with some birthday festivities, which hopefully involves a large plate of nachos and a margarita or two. So
And
I appreciate it, guys.
And very likely another SEC Women's Tournament crown for South Carolina, where it's so crazy how great this program is. We just go into weekends like this expecting them to walk away with the trophy, where if they ended up losing to a Texas or a Vanderbilt on Sunday, we'd legitimately be shocked, because that's what the standard is here now.
Yeah, it certainly is. It's become a tradition. Yeah, speaking of birthday traditions, my birthday tradition the last 2 years I've been here is going to Greenville and watching this South Carolina team win another SEC tournament. And it almost kind of feels like the Gamecock Invitational at this point. And last year it featured a lot of blowout wins. The year before, a little more theatrics and dramatic events with a Carmela Cardoso buzzer beater to beat Tennessee in the semis, and then a fight breaking out late in the game in the championship game against LSU. But last year they buzzed on through this thing, and I expect them to win it this year. I would be surprised if they don't end up winning it, but at the same time, this is maybe the most competitive, top to bottom the league has been in a few years. We're looking at a game today in the quarters against Kentucky, where it's a Kentucky team that, you only beat by 4 over, the weekend, this past weekend, and they have a couple players in the team like Clara Strack, like when they get hot, can really make this thing interesting.
So how old are you turning on Sunday?
I'll be 31 years old.
Dude, man.
So this will be my second birthday in my 30s.
Wow. Okay, cool. Awesome. Well, hopefully we'll go down with a win for you on Sunday. And hopefully you do get nachos. Are you trying to go to like a Mexican place here, or what's the deal? Like, what's your favorite Mexican spot?
Oh, it'll be in Columbia. I've got a few favorite Mexican spots in town. Real Mexico is up there. But I'm even a fan of, I like to go to Monterey downtown. Any El Jimador is good. Costa Linda over Forest Acres is fantastic. I like the possibilities are endless. So
yes.
You could even just throw a map of all the Mexican restaurants in town. I can close my eyes and throw a dart on one of them, and I'd be happy wherever I go.
Dude, there's a lot of good Mexican places out here in Columbia, so you really can't go wrong. Now let's get back into the basketball. Are you at all? Let me rephrase the question. Scale of 1 to 10. You can also include 0 if you want. How concerned are you about this rematch with Kentucky, given that it was a close game on Sunday? I think that just had more to do with the fact that it was the end of the regular season. Like, South Carolina had already accomplished everything it needed to. But is there any concern level, scale of 0 to 10 today?
I would say 3. It's pretty low. And just because the fact that it is the month of March and weird stuff happens, I'll always keep a sliver of the door open for something weird to happen. But as good as the team as Kentucky is, Jack, like, think about it, this team in Kentucky, at 20-9, I think has underachieved this year. Not many teams end up collecting 9 losses despite being top 20 in the country in offensive and defensive efficiency. They do have a player in Clara Strack who dropped a 33-burger against Georgia yesterday. And then in the first game against Arkansas, Kenny Brooks kind of challenged her, who's the head coach of Kentucky. He says, he called her the worst superstar he's ever seen. And it motivated her to have a big second half. They ran away from the game against Arkansas, and now they got a big game today. But the big reason that I'm not too overly concerned is I don't think you get a poor shooting game from around the basket with South Carolina this time around. I mean, they missed 12 layups or shots at the rim in the game on Sunday, and I think that kind of contributed to this thing being a little bit closer than anybody would have anticipated. I think it being a quote-unquote neutral site game, even though these are all semi-home games for South Carolina, I think is another big difference in the matchup. And lastly, too, because Kentucky ended up losing that game, they fell to the 9 seed in the tournament, meaning they had to play on Wednesday. So this is game 3 in 3 days, and I can't think of a worse opponent I'd want to face on the third game of a back-to-back-to-back than this South Carolina team that is so good defensively, elite defensively, hounds you all over the floor, and then has so many scoring options and a tough inside presence to the point where if you are on tired legs, this game might not only be a loss for you, but it would be an ugly loss at that.
Elijah Campbell joining us on the road to Greenville, previewing the SEC Women's Tournament, getting coverage starting here at 11:30 with Brad Bullard live from Bon Scores Wellness Arena. Dawn was asked the other day when talking to the media about the concern level for Tessa Johnson, and she said, hey, we're just going to encourage her to keep shooting because the last 3 games she's been 7 of 28 from the field with 18 total points. Funny enough, she was struggling towards the end of last year in the regular season, but was able to turn it on at tournament time, which is where the nickname Tournament Tessa comes from. What, if any, concern level do you have for her heading into this weekend?
Little to none. That's the thing with some really great shooters, man. There are some players in basketball that are just incredibly streaky, and they're magic 8-ball players where it's any given game, you kind of shake the magic 8-ball up, and you'll end up getting, a variety of different results. And while you might have maybe a small cold streak from a shooter like Tessa, at the end of the day, she's still one of the best shooters in college basketball. Her percentages reflect that, not just because she's had maybe 1 or 2 really good shooting performances, but it's a collection of really great shooting performances over the season. And, when looking at that, when you look at that box score from the Kentucky game, you see 2 for 10, and you could look at it and be like, oh, that's a bad shooting day. But I look at it and then, good, she's getting 10 three-point attempts. I can live with 2 for 10 from a player that is a 40+% three-point shooter and somebody who's just got the fundamentally sound shot that she does. It's one of those things, too, that when you shoot the ball the right way, consistently every single time you get a shot off, I like the percentages of it going in, even if you get some bad basketball luck, which is always bound to happen. This setting here in Greenville is a perfect place for her to be able to see a couple go in. Maybe a big key for her early is to get inside and finish around the basket and just visualize and see a couple of balls go in the hoop. And I think once that happens, then we're going to get the Tessa Johnson that we've known to have, despite injuries and maybe a couple of off nights here and there.
Let's say South Carolina does win today. Do you expect them to be taking on LSU tomorrow? I didn't realize they're also playing Oklahoma right after the South Carolina game. So that's actually a little bit of a tough draw, to be honest. Oklahoma obviously beat South Carolina earlier this year. They're just as good as LSU in a lot of respects. Do you anticipate South Carolina playing LSU tomorrow if South Carolina wins, or what do you think?
I do. Just from a basketball standpoint, I think LSU is more reliable in terms of how they get their baskets. I know Kim Mulkey does not value the SEC tournament much at all. She was even on the set on SEC Nation yesterday at halftime of the Florida-Oklahoma game talking about her not caring about the tournament, right, which is wild to me. But it's not a huge priority, so if Oklahoma wins, it's not too terribly surprising, and it's also a top 10 matchup in the quarterfinal of a conference tournament, which is pretty wild on its own and is a reflection of just how good this league has been this year. I anticipate playing LSU, but with Oklahoma, they're always one of those teams with the style of play that they have and their high volume of three-point shots that if you just get a day today where they're clicking on all cylinders, then they can send LSU home a little bit early. If you combine that with maybe a little disinterest from LSU, but just from a basketball standpoint, I think if you plot these teams in any neutral site in America and you make them play 10 times, I think LSU probably wins 7 of those 10.
Elijah Campbell again on the road to Greenville to cover the SEC Women's Tournament this weekend. Before we let you go, and we had the opportunity to be out there yesterday, tell them about our friends over at Griffin Pools and Spas in Lexington.
Yes, absolutely. Now, you guys could definitely attest to Griffin Pools and Spas, and I think it was you guys maybe had the best backdrop of any video that stream that we've had on these airwaves. But Griffin Pools and Spas, big shout out to them being the sponsor of this. $500 discount on above ground pools this month, $950 savings on all spa purchases, and they have all the spa brands you could possibly ask for: Bullfrog, Tropic Seas, Generations, Marquee, anything that you need to get your pool looking nice and beautiful. go over to Griffin Pools and Spas because if weather feels great today, it's a beautiful day outside. I think our fake spring is over and real spring is coming in. No better time to do it than to do it right now, and no better ad to have to remind you to do it than this right here. Hit them up.
We almost got Jack to jump in one of those pools yesterday.
The water.
Oh, why didn't you?
The water's freezing. I said I would have done it for $100. Like
we didn't have $100, Jack.
Oh my God! Everyone has Venmo, Cash App these days. We all make a little bit of money.
Jack just thinks we're all made of money, Elijah.
I guess so.
When you split it up though,
trees or something.
Yeah, split it up, $33 a person. I mean, I would have paid if Chris wanted to jump in the pool, or shoot, if Elijah was with us, I'm sure he would have wanted to jump in, right?
I would have done it for the love of the game, Jack Veltri. I would have done it for free. I would have done it for the laughs.
Elijah with all that hair wet would probably look pretty funny, too.
Yes. Yeah, that would have been funny.
It would take a while to dry. That is the downside.
All right, man. Take care. We look forward to your coverage this weekend.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, guys.
Elijah Campbell on the way up there to Greenville. We'll come back, wrap up the hour, give our future headlines for the weekend as the Extra Point rolls along here on the game. All right, welcome back in. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head and Jack Veltri wrapping up hour number 2 here on your Friday on the Game. Again, we are going to lead you in to, or Wes and I are going to lead you into pregame coverage for South Carolina women's basketball coming up at 11:30 with Brad Muller live from Bon Score, as well as the arena. To start off the 11 o'clock hour, though, we are going to be joined by Ashley Chastain-Woodard, head coach of South Carolina softball, as she previews their opening SEC series this weekend as they take on at Texas here in Columbia. So looking forward to that. We'll get into our future headlines in a moment, but I didn't get a chance to bring this up when we were talking earlier about the chaotic things that are happening around the basketball world already in the month of March. I'm going to be as careful as I can with this headline, but there is a coach that was at Cal State Bakersfield, Kevin Mays, that has now been exposed as, well, for lack of a better term, because in the headline, moonlighting as a pimp across 4 states over the past handful of years. He has been fired by the university, but You ever see one of those headlines that you're just like, well, that's not real? And then you're like, oh, ESPN wrote it. It's definitely real. This is one of those.
The opening paragraph is arguably one of the best I've read. It says, the men's basketball program at California State University Bakersfield won't turn many heads with its last place ranking in the Big West Conference. But when it comes to scandal, the school could be a top contender. Mic drop. Like, that's gold right there. And to be honest, when I heard this, I was like, what? Like, I didn't even know what moonlighting, pimping even is. Quite frankly, I don't even want to know. He moonlighted as a pimp. I don't even.
Well, it's essentially saying that that's not your main job, like moonlighting by something that you do at night. We're like, okay, your main job is to be a basketball coach. Then at night you're going and being, in this case, a pimp to make extra money on the side. That's kind of what it means.
Yeah, I don't even know. It's kind of crazy, all these things going on in basketball. There's never a dull day.
And this was all tipped off by an anonymous email that was sent to, let's see,
it says fix it in all, it says in all caps.
Well, it was sent to the head coach.
Yes.
Back in August, and the headline was "Fix it or the whole staff will fall."
In all caps.
That'll get your attention.
Yes, it was a first warning and final warning. So
yes.
Crazy.
The full story's on ESPN. A lot of details, a lot of very illegal things going on here that we won't dive into the details of, but it caught the attention of a lot of people because it's one of those like, oh, that's The Onion, right? That The Onion wrote that, or one of those satirical websites. Like, no, this is real, and it's definitely an interesting read if you get the time to dive into that.
This guy is. I'm reading some of these things he's charged with here. He's, in other words, I think he's screwed. So that's not good.
There's a lot against him. We'll say that much. As we wrap up hour number 2, as we do on Fridays, we give our future headlines of the weekend. Again, you got the women's tournament going on, the last day of the SEC regular season, mid-major tournaments going on, a lot of baseball going on for the final weekend of non-conference series. Jack, where is your headline going to be found this weekend?
Yeah, I'm going to go with the World Baseball Classic. Obviously, I got the USA jersey on, so I figure that probably gives it away. I've got the United States. This is more of a bold take, and it might not happen, but I know like they're going to win both games this weekend. They're playing Brazil tonight, and then they're playing Great Britain tomorrow. But I'm going to have the USA run ruling in both games. Okay. I'll tell you why. So there's a 10-run run rule after 7 innings, and if they're up by 15 runs after 5 innings, the game's over. Just seeing the way this lineup hit in the 2 exhibition games against the Giants and the Rockies, where they put 29 combined runs. I'll read you off this projected lineup. Bobby Witt at shortstop leading off. Bryce Harper at first base. Aaron Judge, the captain on my jersey, batting 3rd. Kyle Schwarber hitting 4th. Cal Raleigh hitting 5th. Alex Bregman hitting 6th. Gunnar Henderson 7th. Byron Buxton 8th. And Ernie Clement 9th. That's a really dangerous lineup. And when you look at the WBC pool play, because Italy and Mexico will also be in the pool that USA will play not this weekend, but early next week. These 2 games at the start against Brazil and Great Britain are the easiest on the schedule. I really do think the U.S. is going to crush it in these first 2 games, get off to a good start, and I'd be surprised if they don't win and run rule both games. So that'll be my prediction for the weekend, is they're not only going to win, but they're going to run rule. And also, you never see this. I mean, I meant to talk about this with Corey earlier, but the U.S. is favored by 9.5 runs tonight. When do you ever see that? I mean, 9.5 runs is really, really big for any baseball game. I don't care who the opponent is, but that just says more about how dominant I think the U.S. is going to be in this tournament. They're favored to win the whole thing in the WBC. This is arguably their best roster put together in any of these tournaments so far over the years. So we'll see, but I definitely expect the United States to get off to a great start this weekend.
Real quick, an unpopular opinion, I think Major League Baseball should adopt a run rule at some point. I know that's not a popular take, but I'd be in favor of it.
I would be in favor of it if it's like the 15-run rule, right?
Maybe not 10, but something like
15.
I don't need to see the White Sox getting beat 25-2.
I agree. So I think maybe eventually. I'm surprised that actually hasn't been ever implemented with everything else going on at the pace of play. But 15, I think, would be good in the future.
I just want to throw that out there. My headline of the weekend, we'll stick with the SEC Women's Tournament. I know Elijah mentioned there that Kim Mulkey doesn't care about the women's tournament necessarily. She's got bigger fish to fry with the women's tournament coming up in a couple weeks, but she does care about beating South Carolina. If they beat Oklahoma today and Carolina wins against Kentucky, they'll match up tomorrow in the semifinals. My prediction, very specific, I think Kim Mulkey gets assessed to Tech for arguing with officials and getting so angry taking on South Carolina tomorrow. I know that's very specific, but I could see it happening.
Dang, I thought you were going to say that Kim Mulkey finally gets over the hump.
No. I think she gets assessed to Tech for blowing her lid again with the officials tomorrow.
Especially if they're playing South Carolina, which is more than likely, and the fact that like she just hasn't beaten them yet. She gets kind of antsy. She's a little bit of a whack job. Yeah, I could totally see that being a real thing.
I expect I expect South Carolina to move to 19 straight wins against LSU if they do match up tomorrow. But I am predicting Kim Mulkey gets assessed to Tech for losing her mind against the officials.
Man, now here's the other thing: if they win, she's going to lose her mind, right?
Yeah, well, of course.
So you may as well just go lose her mind in general.
I want to go for losing mind from the standpoint of it's positive for South Carolina.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
I agree. So I can see it happening.
We'll see if those headlines end up coming true this upcoming weekend. Coming up next, as we start the 11 o'clock hour, Ashley Chastain-Water are going to join us to preview the softball series against Texas this weekend here on The Game. right, 11 o'clock on your Friday morning. Welcome back in. It is the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Tyler and Wes Mitchell along with you for an abbreviated show today as we're going to lead you right into pregame coverage of South Carolina women's basketball at the SEC tournament coming up at the bottom of the hour with Brad Muller live from Bond Scores Wellness Arena. We are efforting to get Ashley Chastain-Woodard joining us on the AAA Heat and Air phone lines in just a minute. So our guy Ed Bird's going to update us once we have her there. But Wes, it's another busy and exciting weekend of Gamecock sports.
Yeah, it is exciting, man. Like you said, the women's basketball team will be kicking off here, tipping off very shortly after our show. This will be the easiest show we do all year, Tyler. Softball with a massive series this weekend. Baseball. I learned yesterday, apparently Princeton has actual student athletes.
That's right.
Why
they care about academics.
Better on Saturday. So no baseball today. If you're not in Greenville, man, get over and watch some softball tonight or over the weekend because I think there's going to be a very high-quality series over there.
Yeah, no doubt. Again, as they open things up against Texas over at Beckham Field. And again, we're hoping to be joined by Ashley Chastain-Woodard coming up here in just a moment. As you mentioned, baseball in action, doubleheader tomorrow as they take on Princeton. We wrap up the SEC regular season for men's basketball. Coming up tomorrow, South Carolina will take on Ole Miss, and then we're likely going to see the end of their season sometime next week, and we'll be able to debate the future of Lamont Paris if we don't already know it by that point in time.
Yeah, I mean, I tell you, man, a lot of people are asking what's going to happen with the men's basketball program. And obviously, I think there's going to be some difficult conversations over there. At the same time, most of what I hear right now kind of points more towards a, return from Lamont Paris. So I think that obviously will be something to track, something to keep an eye on moving forward because things like that typically just are not final until they're final, basically. So everybody can ask what's going to happen, how's the future going to play out. Don't want to speculate on that too much, but, I think obviously if Lamont Paris is back, there will be some really strong conversations with Jeremiah Donati about, hey, what needs to happen moving forward, what resources need to be in place in order to try and get this program turned around.
Yeah, and again, that game coming up tomorrow at 1 o'clock, which you can listen to right here on 107.5 The Game. And again, we'll see if Donati puts out a statement, next week before the tournament, waits till afterwards, see what happens out there in Nashville to determine what the future is certainly going to be there as well. But of course, we're focused on women's basketball as well this upcoming weekend. Again, bottom of the hour, Brad Muller will take over with his pregame coverage line live from Bon Secours Wellness Arena. And we talked about it with Elijah Campbell there in that last hour as he's on his way up to Greenville. It's so cool that we just have these expectations like, yeah, of course they're going to go in there and win the tournament. They've already won the regular season, just add another trophy to the case and go on to contend for and hopefully have another shot at a national title coming up here in a couple weeks. Not going to be easy. Got a Kentucky team that played him close the other day up in Lexington. Could match up with LSU or Oklahoma coming up tomorrow. And, of course, possibly facing a Vanderbilt or Texas if they make it to the championship game on Sunday.
Yeah, and, I think if you're Don Staley, obviously, man, you've done all this before, right? Like, none of this is new to you. So you are trying to do everything you can, not just to win this tournament, but, frankly, to put your team in a position to build up towards the big tournament. So, I think it's not even so much about can you stack another trophy, can you get more wins? It's more about do you put yourself in a position where you feel like you're playing your best ball at the right time of this year.
We'll certainly see. And, again, that game coming up at the top of the hour there. And, again, hoping that, as we talked about with Wellbom yesterday, it doesn't seem like there's any doubt that they're going to be a number one overall seed no matter what happens. But certainly, winning a couple more games can just further solidify that as you go into the NCAA tournament coming up here in a couple weeks. But exciting time. Month of March is always fun, whether your teams are involved in it or not. Mid-major basketball on the men's side, getting their conference tournaments rolling as well. Those are fun to watch throughout the weekend, and obviously we'll be able to see get a pretty good idea what the bracket's going to look like for the women coming away from this weekend as well.
Yeah, and I'll say this, man, the game with Kentucky today, it's easy to look at on the surface. South Carolina, the 1 seed, pretty much won the SEC going away. Number 9, Kentucky, in terms of an SEC seeding, they've played pretty well down the stretch, man. They were right there against South Carolina. That game was obviously in Lexington, so a little bit different atmosphere than we're going to see today. But, Tyler, I think Carolina does need to go play well in order to beat Kentucky, in order to kind of look ahead to those next two games. But yeah, I don't think this will necessarily just be a show up and win this game going away. Kentucky feels to me like a basketball team that is starting to play some of their best ball at the right time of year, too.
Well, one thing that Carolina has to their benefit is this, of course, being their first game of the week after playing on Sunday. Kentucky had to play their way through the first couple rounds, beat Georgia yesterday, played Arkansas, back on Wednesday. So there's going to be a fatigue factor playing in there as well. It's also not a home game for them, as that game was in Lexington this past Sunday. And as we know, Vic Schaefer likes to bring up a lot. Greenville's essentially a home game for South Carolina.
Can Vic stop complaining, man?
But please.
Tyler, the thing has to be played somewhere.
That's right.
And, if in every sport, there is a team or two that has a little bit more of a advantage to where the game is being played. So, to me, why does it seem like with South Carolina and the women's basketball team, this gets complained about more than any other sport? Because you have to play it somewhere. In every sport, there's a couple of teams that have that advantage. And so to me, Greenville, A, does a fantastic job of hosting the thing. B, my wife was at the first game of this thing on a field trip for her job, and there's two teams that have no ties to this area whatsoever, and there's a great crowd there. People are having fun. There's students out there. It's like a great field trip thing for young kids to get to watch a basketball game for college. I mean, if I'm the SEC, why would I even consider moving it away from Greenville? They've done a fantastic job of hosting this thing so far. And guess what? When you're the big dog, you do get a little bit of advantages along the way. You've earned that right, in my opinion.
Yeah, certainly so. And it's in a centralized-ish location where most teams in the SEC aren't too terribly far away from it. Yeah, Missouri, Texas, Oklahoma, all those schools are a little bit farther out once you get in the Midwest, but they're all teams that obviously join the conference later than everybody else, so they're not quite as centralized as everybody. But yeah, he's the only one that I see bring it up. And he admitted the other day when asked about it again, after one of their games, that he admits that, hey, Greenville does a great job. They bid for it, and that's the reason why they get it. But yeah, if you're a good team, especially one like Texas that's going to be in the mix for the national championship, just like South Carolina as a projected number one seed, you got to be able to handle games against opponents no matter where they're being played.
Yeah, the court's still the same size. Last I checked, you're going to face a decided home court advantage against you when you're playing South Carolina. But for most of these other games, it is going to be a true neutral floor. So I don't know, man. I've never liked when coaches make all these excuses. Like, you don't really want your players making excuses. You probably don't allow your players to make excuses about things. So why even open that door to allow excuses to enter the conversation? Just have really never been a fan of that, man.
Yeah, it's always been an odd thing. Let's hit a break a little bit early here. We'll try an effort to ask Chastain Woodard one more time. Actually, we do have her on the line, and we'll get her into that conversation with her coming up on the other side. So go ahead and hit a break. It is the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour, presented by Firehouse Subs here on the game. right, welcome back in. It is the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Tyler and Wes along with you for a short show today, getting you ready for a busy weekend of Gamecock sports, which includes Gamecock softball as they get SEC play rolling with Texas coming into town this weekend. Always happy to be joined by head coach Ashley Chastain-Woodard on the AAA Heating and Air phone lines. Coach, appreciate the time as always. How are we doing today?
Hey, good morning. I'm doing great. I'm glad we got connected here this morning as we start the SEC play tonight.
Well, we're all excited for it. Certainly, Texas coming to town, number 3 team in the nation. Of course, last year you guys entered SEC play undefeated in that road trip out there to Oklahoma, where all those were tight one-run losses. Not quite the same record going into SEC play this year, but how are you feeling this time around as your squad gets ready for Texas?
Yeah, I feel like we're in a great spot. You know, we had a unique week this week of having 3 full practices here in town because we didn't have a midweek, which is a blessing this time of the year. So we feel great about where we're at and what we're doing. And, you know, we've been really intentional with our preseason schedule in the month of February of really challenging ourselves and honestly probably challenging ourselves more than we did last year. So, you know, we've been in some really close games with some World Series teams the past couple weeks, which I think everything that we've gone through, you know, on the road and at home, I think is going to fare really well for us as we match up now with our conference opponents, you know, specifically with Texas tonight. So I feel really good about where we're at, and I feel really good about, you know, the team is prepared, you know, for the level of competition that we're going to face this evening.
Hey, Coach, I appreciate you hopping on, as always, on a game day here, no less. I always like to pick out somebody and just kind of spotlight them here when you're on. So let's go with Carly Shelton today. I feel like she's been so steady at second base, you almost forget about her. You know, she was good last year, but just feels to me like she's taken an even greater step this year. What can you tell the fans out there about the improvements that Carly Shelton has made this season?
Yeah, Carly just has really impressed me since the moment I walked into the program, and her growth over the last 2 years has been, you know, just fantastic to have a front seat to observe. I think last year Carly really learned how to lead herself and learned how to be successful at this level. And this year, I think she's leading the people around her. She's a captain for us this year. And I think any given day, she's the best player on the field for us. I've been really impressed just with her defense. I think she's a tough out at the plate. I think she's always a tough out at the plate. I don't think there's any pitcher in the country that wants to face her. But I think defensively, she's really anchored us and made some really elite plays over the first 4 weeks of our season that I've been really impressed with. And, you know, I've talked a lot about Carly recently. I'm glad she's a Gamecock. I wouldn't want it any other way. And I think I categorize her as kind of our diesel engine. I mean, she's the kind of like, she makes us go. She creates a lot of chaos and havoc in the game against the opponent. And so really excited about what she's going to do in conference. I think she's more prepared than she's ever been and leading herself and leading our team really well. So I'm really excited to watch her take on conference play.
Coach, in a similar way, kind of moving to the circle, I thought Jory Herb was obviously really good for you guys last year, but I don't know. I feel like she's made a step too. She just has like an aura about her, like a confidence about her in leverage situations, at least from what I can notice. What do you see from like your pitching coach background? Like what has been maybe her biggest jump this year from last year?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think Jory's definitely taken the next step, and I think she's better than she's ever been. I think she's just getting a lot of swing and miss, and I think that is something that has increased for her from last year. As good as she was last year for us, I think right now she can really reach back and get a swing and miss in the box when we really need to get off the field defensively. I think she's not really fazed by high leverage situations anymore, so I think we get the same level of play from her no matter who we're playing, no matter what the situation is. So there's a lot of steadiness and consistency in what she's bringing the team, and I think she's giving the team a lot of confidence as our ace. And I think she just made the decision to be that, honestly. I mean, she's got all the resources around her and so much experience at this point. I think she's just really leaned in and made the commitment that this last year, as her senior year, is going to be her best one, and that she's going to really lead us in the circle, which, I mean, I would argue is the most important aspect of making sure that we're successful down the stretch, is that we have a true ace that we can put in the circle at any given time. So I'm really proud of her. I think she's the best she's ever been. She looks awesome. Her speed's up right now. I mean, her speed was a little down at the start of the year, and I think she's worked really hard of just making sure she settles in. And I think her velo looks great. Her swing and miss is increased, and she's looking really good against lefties and righties, whereas in the past she's been a righty specialist. I think she's had more success against lefties the first 4 weeks of season. So she's in a great spot. I love where she's at going into conference play, and I think she's going to be a really tough pitcher for the league to face this year.
Again, talking to Gamecock softball coach Ashley Chastain Woodard here in the AAA Heating and Air phone line. Since we're shining some spotlights, one of our favorite players to talk about is Ari Rodian. Over the weekend, hits a career milestone of 50 career home runs. You've obviously gotten to watch her entire career. Going back to y'all's time at Charlotte, well, what's it like seeing her being able to accomplish something like that this past weekend?
Yeah, it's really special. You know, it's not a small feat to hit that many homers at the level of competition that we play. And, you know, I'm just really proud of her. And Ari is so team-oriented. I don't even think she realized that she had hit that milestone until after the game when we celebrated it all together, because she's just so focused on what she can do for the team and how to get us to take the next step as a team and lead us. But she looks great. She's really comfortable. She's not fazed by anything in the box. And, you know, I think she's already walked. I think she's second in the league right now with walks, with about 22 walks on the year. So I think she's got a great eye at the plate. We've been really encouraging her just to go for it and, you know, make sure she's taking her swings when she really wants to, when she's hunting something and she gets it. So I expect that you're going to see her go into conference play in a really good spot, you know, aggressive to what she's hunting in the box and trying to change the game for us when she's in there. So, you know, I've just had the privilege of being around Ari for a really long time, and I could not be more proud of everything she's doing and really who she is, you know, representing our program on a national level.
Coach, I know from watching you guys operate, you'll be pretty intentional about how you use your kind of weapon in Jory, but how do you also see like Neely Lamb and Emma Friedel as the year has progressed here for about a month? How do you see them kind of settling into their various roles and how you're going to kind of just, you know, mix, match, or just kind of piece the weekend together going into conference play, I guess?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up Neely Lamb because I think Neely really has taken a step forward, specifically in the California trip. You know, we face some World Series teams and we're in some World Series type of games and atmospheres while we were out there. And, you know, those fell short for us. But I was really just taken back by the way that she performed in those atmospheres and against that caliber of opponent. And I think she really kind of broke through a lot of things physically and mentally that we're going to need from her down the stretch here that that we're getting into conference play. So, you know, I think Neely has just gotten better and better. Neely's a winner. I always think about that. Like, she's always won. She won at Charleston Southern. You know, she won 10 games for us last year here, and I think she's going to do even better for us this year. So she's just a winner, and when she's on the field, I think, you know, the team really feels that from her, that she has a lot of experience. And, you know, she's kind of the opposite of Jory. Neely's always thrown really well against lefties, but she's actually throwing better against righties this year than she did in the past. And so I think those two together has been a really good mix because they're throwing to their weaker side better this year than they did in the past. So they've upped their game. And Neely has the best off speed on our staff when she's on. And so she always provides, you know, that change of speed for us that we really need when we face a really high-powered offense that we want to keep off time. And you're going to see her tonight. You know, we can't get through the weekend with just Jory. You know, you're going to see Neely in a lot of different situations, and I think she's prepared for it. I think she's ready, and I think she'll give us her best foot forward. You know, and Emma Friedel, you spoke about Emma. She's somebody that's gotten better and better as the year has gone on. And, you know, we can't afford not to give her the ball. She's got really, really good stuff, and you know, we're going to need multiple arms throughout the weekend to help us, you know, maintain or mitigate damage with the Texas offense that's coming in here that's very talented and very powerful. So, you know, I think you're going to see Emma in spots that she matches up well in the lineup. You know, Emma provides a little bit different of a look than Jory and Neely does. So I like the trio of them all together. You know, we've got a lot of options.
Coach, we appreciate the time as always. Know it's a very busy day, but we look forward to seeing your squad in action this weekend.
Thank you guys so much for the coverage. And, it's going to be a great atmosphere this weekend for us. The tickets are almost sold out, and I just could not thank everyone enough for coming to Beckham, to seeing us play. It's going to be a great weather this weekend, which we've been waiting for all season up to this point. So I look forward to seeing you guys, and thanks so much.
Absolutely. Appreciate it as always. Ashley Chastain-Wood are there joining us on the AAA Heating and Air phone lines again, and get out to Beckham Field this weekend for whatever few tickets they have available. Tonight at 6 o'clock against Texas. Tomorrow afternoon at 3, the wrap-up series Sunday over coming up at noon there in the midst of what's going to be a very busy weekend. And as we wrap up for the final 45 seconds or so here, Wes, looking forward to the SEC Women's Tournament up next and hoping South Carolina can bring home a trophy themselves.
Yeah, let's go watch some women's basketball, then let's watch some softball tonight. Hopefully the Gamecocks will get lots of wins this weekend, man, and we'll be able to talk about it on Monday. Like I said, hey, easiest show we've done all year, Tyler.
That's right. Brad Muller joining, are going to be hopping on here in about 5 minutes to take you up to tip-off between South Carolina and Kentucky, live from Bond Scores Wellness Arena for the SEC Women's Tournament here on your Friday on the Game.